Or I guess we can begin now. I don't see any other people joining, but hi everyone. I hope y'all can hear me okay. If not, just type something in chat and I'll see if how to address it. But thanks for joining us for this webinar. We'll be talking about how to unlock the full potential of AI in computing education with Codio Coach. I'm going to start with a little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Mohit Chandarana. I am a data science and AI specialist at Codio. I lead the research and prototyping of data-driven product features, algorithms, learning analytics for CS educators, as well as student-facing features as well. If we go back circa 2021 and have someone tell us that, oh, LLMs are going to be everywhere, right? It would have been very hard to believe. But here we are in 2024, and literally everyone everywhere across industries wants to test and see how LLMs do on certain tasks in their own fields. Like, speaking of the computing education research community, right? If you look at the program of this year's ACM 6C Technical Symposium, which is the special interest group in computer science education, almost every time slot has an LLM paper session. They want to look at student and teacher perspectives. They want to look at tools. They're also looking at how LLMs are doing with debugging and error detection and how they've also been used in small colleges and beyond, right? Um, that's the thing. It almost makes you wonder, as educators, should we embrace or resist incorporating Gen AI into the curriculum, right? Now, we at Codio, we're a group with extensive computing education backgrounds. We've all taught CS courses. We've all been TAs in grad school, right? So the question that we want to ask is, how do we use this new technology to help educators and students both? I've been a TA in grad school where it was 5 of us for a class of 200. It was a mandatory large CS course. And if I had the golden opportunity to have my office hours 2 days before submission, it would be flooded with students wanting to monopolize my time to help them, right? And that would not be possible because you can't just help one if there's 10 people waiting, right? So how do we use Gen AI to manage these increasing student-teacher ratios, which are only getting worse? But at the same time, how do we also use it to help students when they need it, to encourage them to ask help and to make progress by themselves? Um, let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about students asking help. So what do students need help with the most? Um, as TAs with myself and others, we've seen this experience that a big chunk of our office hours would just be students coming up to us asking how to get started because they're having trouble understanding the assignment, or how to debug this error message because they know what to do, but they're just stuck. They've tried Google, they've tried Stack Exchange, it's not working, right? Or they're just stuck and they don't know what to do next. Also, I'd like to pause and say that if you have any questions at any point, you can just type them in chat, and one of my colleagues will answer them, and we'll take the rest towards the end of the session for the Q&A. So these are the things that students needed help with the most, right? And we kind of wanted to see how this mirrors in students' use of Gen AI, because we all know students are using these tools, right? So we looked at, we did an extensive literature review and we did our own survey, and the survey says that students are doing exactly that, right? They're using it to understand or summarize their projects, the assessment prompts. They want to get started and they're using it to write algorithms or pseudocode, or they're using it to get unstuck if they have error messages or they want to debug their code, right? Now, we also know that the research community is extensively engaged in testing how LLMs are doing on these tasks, right? So we did another literature review to see what exactly is going on. And the CER community says that for summarization, LLMs are on par with human written summaries. If these models are given the full source code context, along with the assignment description or the task that the students are supposed to do, they're pretty good at giving correct error explanations, although they're really jumpy about giving them fixes and solutions as well, but we'll get to that later. But we also found that it's also possible to set guardrails and guidelines for these models to not give away answers. If you want to set up set them up in a way where you want students to be able to request hints. With all this, it's still hard for instructors to have access to all these technologies that are doing really well, but just not have time to incorporate them. This is where we come in. We're introducing Codio Coach, Codio's AI conversational assistant, which will have multiple different tasks that students can click and work with. This is a basic like interaction of how it will look like for the student, and we'll dive into what's live in the product right now. A funny anecdote: Coach is in. The experimental beta is launched. It's in the product as of this week, and it features 3 assistants for now. The summarization assistant, where students can request a summary of the assessment prompt. The error explanation assistant, where students can request simple, plain explanations of compiler error messages that are hard to understand. And research says they are hard to understand. But they will not receive any solutions or fixes, but only possible causes of error. This is where the guardrails and the guidelines come in, right? And the third assistant is the next steps hints, where students can request hints for completing the assessment requirements. Let's look at these assistants in detail and understand what exactly they do, right? So the summarization assistant will give students 2 things. It will give them a simple summary of the task that they have to do of the programming assignment, along with a list of requirements that they can access in their chat history whenever they want to keep tabs on what exactly is to be done and how far along have they made their progress, right? As I said, the explain error assistant will not give solutions or fixes. It will be a plain English explanation with possible causes of the error, and it will point them exactly where they need to look to see what's going on. And the assistant that will provide hints on what to do next will provide context-specific hints, and these will be phrased as questions or suggestions rather than the assistant telling them exactly what they need to do or providing a solution. We believe that these 3 things together will tackle the problems that we spoke about earlier in terms of students needing help, in terms of TAs and instructors not having enough time. And this can be your first line of defense, where most simple problems that students would have, students will be able to solve themselves. Let's look at a demo where we take a look at these assistants in action. First off, you'll have to enable Coach for your assignments. Yes, in Codio, this is an assignment level feature and not a course level feature. So you would have to go into the course that you want to enable Coach for. So you'd select your course. Depending on which assignment you want to turn it on for, you would select that assignment under overview and you will click on settings. You can scroll all the way down until you find the virtual coach section. This is where you'll see the toggles for all the 3 assistants that are in the beta feature right now. And you can turn on one or more depending on what you want, and you can save the changes. Let's say you want to quickly add it to another assignment as well. You don't need to go all the way out. You can just use it from the left panel, scroll all the way down again, and enable the assistants you want for the next assignment. This ensures that if an assignment is an exam, it is not automatically on, and these assistants are not there unless you want them there. Now let's look at the summarization assistant and how it works. So first we'd want to see how it would look like from the student perspective. So in your course, you will look at students and we'll see how it looks for this test student. You can log in as them, you can select the assignment that they'd be working in. And this is the student view. They would have the code file open on the left and the guides page with the assessment prompt on the right. So this gives the entire description of the task they have to do, the expectations, the requirements, the print statements that they need to have, and some starter code on the left with exact places where the students have to enter their code. Now I clicked on Coach and I clicked on Summarize what I need to do. So this is taking in the entire assignment description on the right and generating a simple summary of what needs to be done and a list of requirements that goes through the description and gives them point to point the things that they need to take care of and they need to do. So here students have to create a satellite subclass. They have to create a planet subclass. So this is an inheritance exercise. So it has to inherit from this superclass. It needs to have certain attributes. They have to instantiate certain objects and they have to print out all the attributes. So that's their task, and they have the list of requirements, and they have a clear goal that they can proceed towards. Now, in the context of the same exercise, let's look at how the explain and error assistant looks like. We're back in the same exercise again. We clicked on coach, we got the summary, we got the list of requirements, and now we have a clear path forward. So in the code file, we, as a student, made some progress. We wrote a piece of code, just uncommenting it right now. And in Codio, you have the option to give students a try it button so they can test their code before they submit it. So I'm clicking try it, it's running it behind the test script, and boom, there are 2 errors. Now, as you can see on the bottom right, there's a tiny pop-up or coach that says it can help explain the error, right? On clicking it, it automatically takes the error messages that were detected on the right panel and generates the plain text summary. You can see that it's not giving solutions, it's not giving fixes, it's actually telling them that they've done something correctly, but they've not defined the planet class anywhere in their code, which is why they're getting the cannot find symbol error, right? Now, cannot find symbol by itself sometimes gets confusing. In this case, it was not that confusing, but with this explanation, they clearly know what has happened and what has caused it, right? A follow-up question to this would be, well, if I use Codio and if I don't do custom buttons, and if my students get their errors in the terminal, how do I use the explain and error assistant? It's not a problem at all. We'll look at another exercise that walks us through just that. And let's see. So this is where we were in the inheritance exercise. We found like the error message explanation, and let's go to the exercise where we see the terminal error. So this is where I've opened another exercise. This is in Python, so we'll be able to see the language difference as well, that it works well for any programming language. This exercise is a simple interest calculation exercise formula. We've pasted the code and we've made an error here where we haven't completed the parentheses, right? So I would go all the way to the bottom to find my try it button, and I can see the error has been pasted on the left here, right? But there's no pop-up because it wasn't detected in the guides, right? The students are seeing errors in their terminal. So what they can do is, if they want to use that assistant, they can copy paste that error message from the terminal, and they can open Coach. And only the explain an error assistant right now has a free text field where students can paste an error message and then click send to activate the error assistant that would give them the explanation. Now, if a student pastes anything but an error message, this would reply with saying, this is not an error message. Please give me an error that you'd like to have explained, so that students cannot use the free text to exploit the system. So it's explaining the end of file error parsing, and it's giving possible causes, right? That it typically happens if you have an unclosed code block or closing parentheses or bracket. So as soon as you fix it and you run it again, the error is gone and you've made progress, right? So these are the 2 ways you can use the explain and error assistant right now. Now let's look at the third one, the hint path. For this, we look at the inheritance exercise again. And just to recap, we got the list of requirements in the summary. We tried to make some progress. We had an error message. It explained that error message, but we still don't know what to do, right? So we click on provide a hint on what to do next. And as you can see, these hints are phrased as suggestions. They're phrased to help encourage students to think about what they could do and consider the things that they could do. So it says that the students have correctly defined the satellite class. They've done some things right. Now it's asking them to do another thing that the assignment description requires, the same way they've done something before. So this assistant has access to the current student code state as well as the assignment description, and it takes into account all of this when it crafts the hints. The other hint that it's given is a mismatch in methods. So this actually reads through and understands what errors could possibly exist, and they're giving them suggestions that they should fix it. Now, let's say we've taken in some suggestions, we've figured out, okay, this is something that we need to do, and as students, okay, this was missing a class, so I'm going to add a class. This is just to show that this assistant has access to what the students are updating in real time, and it will be able to give more hints or suggestions depending on the progress the students have made so far. So now if I click on provide a hint on what to do next again, it's not going to repeat the things. It's going to help me make progress and help me point in the right direction. So now it's asking me to look at the assignment requirements for the other things that need to be done, right? Again, at any point, it will not be giving any solutions or fixes. It will just nudge students to follow the right direction to get closer to the solution and make progress. Since this is a beta experimental feature, we're currently making enhancements and improvements to it, and there are some things lined up for the future that we'll be adding to Coach. As an instructor, what if you want to tweak or add an assistant, right? That's a very natural response. This is not something that I've done, but I'd like to do it another way, right? Because as instructors who knows the context of the course better than anyone else, you will be able to create custom assistants in Coach by yourself. This could either be tweaking the prompt behind the button that exists right now, writing your own button, writing your own prompt, giving it all the context that you would want it to have. So if you want your prompt to have only the context of the current student code state and nothing else, you can adjust all of that. No problem at all. Fully customizable like everything else in Codio. The API documentation and examples of how to do this will be released soon, but instructors will have the ability to have as many assistants as they want in their course or assignment. Now that we've spoken about custom assistants, right? How do we use these things along with the other data that's available in Codio, right? Can you use Coach to design interventions or to nudge students, right? Absolutely. So one of the examples that we saw earlier for the error explanation assistant, right? It had that nudge that gave the student the ability to click it and activate the assistant. Very soon, we'll also let instructors access events data in Codio. So an event would be a compile or run event with error information, time spent, time on task, and more. And you'll be able to use these events to map student process behaviors and activate Coach with an intervention or nudge, depending on how you want to design it. So one thing or one example that I could give here is, let's say a student has spent quite some time working on a given assignment and they've had repeated errors, right? These are some of the signals that clearly indicate that the student is struggling. And instead of them having to click on Coach and click on provide a hint or provide a hint on what to do next, you could design a custom message or a custom intervention that points them in the right direction or helps them solve that problem that they're having, because you would have access to the events of all the error messages they had, the time that they've spent to fix all these error messages, and you can write your custom script that goes through it and detects those behaviors. Speaking of student process behaviors, we also released a behavior insights dashboard a little while ago that really leverages the student event data and gives instructors a clear look on the actual process of how students have worked on their programming assignments. And you can use these to map all sorts of behaviors right now. You can do student struggle, you can do frustration. So if a student has spent a lot of time, has a really low rate of edit, has a really high debugging time, again, these will be indicators that students are struggling, and you could use any custom thresholds that you define to map these behaviors and trigger an alert saying, okay, this is the list of students that are struggling. I would like to just give some food for thought for our attendees here in terms of these questions, like which assistants would you be interested in creating, right? And what interventions will you want to design? Because the world's your oyster. You can, if you can think it, you can customize it, and we can do it. If that's pretty much the bulk of my presentation right now. I'm sorry if I've been talking for quite some time. Just going to look at chat here if there are any questions. But in case you can't think of anything right now, if you have any other questions for me, you can email me at mchandrana@codio.com. We also have our feedback page where you can post any sort of feedback or suggestions or improvements that you'd like to see. And we can take a look and see what we can do. Um, Again, I'm just going to monitor chat right now if there are any questions coming up, thoughts, comments, feedback. Um, and while we wait for questions to pour in, like I said earlier, SIGSI is this week in Portland, starting Thursday. We're going to be there in Exhibit Hall E. So I will be there too. So if you want to come on down and talk about the things we're doing. Also, if you want to come and talk about the teacher-facing things, the teacher-facing suite of tools that we're building that will use Gen AI, I'd be really happy to sit down and have that conversation with you. Um, okay, I'm opening chat. Open. Is the dashboard available for use right now? If so, how can instructors navigate there? Yes. So again, you will have to switch it on for your assignment or course, and it should be available right now. Let me see if I can quickly um, pull that up for you to show you where it is. And while I do that, let me look at the other question. What about custom hints / feedback for incorrect answers? So as of now, you can give feedback for incorrect answers in like the auto grader that we have. You can design the feedback that you want and give the messages the way that you want. And while and let's see, maybe I can open um, stop sharing my screen and I will share. Uh, right. So if you'd want to turn on the dashboard to see where it is, you can go to your assignment again. Um, you should be able to find a setting that lets you enable behavior insights dashboards. And then when you're in your student list, you'll be able to see for each assignment what exactly like the behaviors that have been triggered. Like it would be in this behavior column right here. And if your thresholds have been matched, depending on what you've set them to be, you'll be able to click here to access that dashboard for any given student. Hoping that answers the question. See, just verifying the knowledge base comes from only the guides and student course base, or does it include general knowledge about the language, which may not be covered in the intro course? So as of now, the context that goes in for any of these assistants is just that. It's the guides and student code base. But because these models have been trained on a lot of general purpose things, it will have its own things in there as well. But this is where setting the instructions and guidelines and guardrails comes in, where anything that it will suggest, you can really scope it down to what you wanted to focus on. And that way it's not going to give suggestions for things or concepts that are outside of the scope of the assignment right now. And yes, this functionality right now is available only in English. We'll see if it is possible for us to expand it to other languages. But for now, it is only available in English. Yes. I have a question here about cost. So what about the cost? Does it come with additional cost like pay per use? So as of 2024, 2025, there's going to be no additional cost for using the coach features. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's my answer for now. Like for now, like there's going to be no additional cost this year. It's going to be available for any assignment. So the other thing that we're also thinking of is how to increase the interactions that students have with these tools, right? How to pedagogically ensure that the interactions that they're having are really good. So we're looking at gamification and we're looking at setting some kinds of thresholds where, let's say, students have 10 attempts of requesting hints every 24 hours. And that's just an example, right? Um, but as an instructor, if you would want 5, or if you would want 10, or you'd want 20, right? We're thinking of having a way where you can set that yourself as well. So you can define custom thresholds for each of the assistants and how often can students use it in any given 24-hour period. So one that doesn't make them over reliant on asking for hints or asking for explanations, and they can really hone in and um, make sure that they're asking and using these assistants only when they need it, and not spamming the buttons, of course. But yeah, uh, has the Coach LLM been tested for false information? Is it reliable? So yes, we're extensively testing it currently as well. Like, we want to make sure that at any given point it doesn't face a situation where incorrect information or or it hallucinates in some way. Again, like, it has not been completely done so far because it's in beta, it's an experimental feature right now. But we've looked at Java, Python, and C++ courses across our resources, and it's really scoped out and on point and doesn't give false information for now. And this is another reason why we've really restricted and taken a measured approach about not enabling free text, because depending on the questions that students might ask and where it may go, right, the probability that false information or hallucinations happen goes up. Which is why the only place where they can have some free text is for pasting error messages. And even that has a validation prompt behind it that doesn't let it break it. Um, so at any given point, like, the summarization assistant will work just as fine with no false information at all. We'll focus on summarizing the assignment and nothing else. And again, the hints assistant will only look at the student code and the assignment and nothing else. But thank you for these questions. They're really good. Cover some of the things that I wanted to talk about. So I have a question about documentation. So the custom assessments piece is actively being released right now. The I am pretty sure that documentation should be available by end of this month, latest, or like first week of April. And you should be able to take it from there and work on custom assistance as well. Oh, Kathy, no problem. You're welcome. Again, please feel free to share your thoughts and feedback to us. Like, you can email me at any point. If you'll be at SIGSI, you can stop by and we can chat about the other things that I'm working on. And of course, we have our feedback page where you can reach out to us and give us some feedback or your thoughts of what you'd like to see. I'm just going to give a few more minutes for any other questions. Okay, the question is, can I explain further what the difference is between just turning on the assistants now versus when we need to copy and paste the error code into the chatbot? Okay, yes. So let me go back to that slide. Um, Okay. So I think it's this one. Yes. Let's see. So in Codio right now, we have custom buttons where you can embed a script behind it that either prints out the error messages that it receives or gives custom feedback to students with the autograder. And that is the error message and guides on the panel that you see here on the right. And that is what is automatically detected by Coach because it's in the guide panel. Coach cannot see the error messages that students would see outside of the guides page. So if it's in the terminal, if it's um, somewhere else, then it would not automatically be able to detect it. Um, but this has nothing to do with turning it on or off. Like this is the feature available as soon as you turn it on. So if you automatically detect, if it automatically detects the error message in the guides page, you would see that pop up on the right here um, that says I can help explain this error, and you can click it and it automatically grabs this error from the guides and pastes it in the chat. Versus if you're working in an exercise that is designed to show errors in the terminal, right? Then students would have to copy and paste that error message from the terminal and click explain an error inside of the of Coach inside of the chatbot. And that is when you would see the option to paste the error message. Um, so in both these things, the way the assistant works is exactly the same. It's just a matter of how the error message is inputted to the assistant, whether it goes in automatically or it's manually pasted. Like that's the only difference. And again, it will also, so if the, let's say you have an autograder behind the try it button or behind your submission button, and you've designed custom feedback that goes to students in case of an incorrect answer. Now, Coach will detect that custom feedback as well. And if students don't understand it, they can request to have that explained as well. And even that will take into account their current code state and the assignment description and will give them an answer accordingly. Um, and if it, the only case where it would say that it doesn't think that it's an error message if it's not looking like custom feedback or an error message from a compiler. That is when it will prompt the student to like paste an error message because what they've pasted doesn't look like an error message. Um, is there a list of languages that are covered? You mentioned uh, so as of now, this is available for any language or any course that you have in Codio. We're slowly testing it for more and more languages to make sure that things don't break at any point. Um, just in terms of progression and the way our resources have been adopted, Java, C++, and Python sit at the very top. So we decided to start there and test it extensively there. And we're slowly making more progress towards testing it for other languages as well. But this is available for any course in any language running on Codio right now. You won't have to worry about um, uh, these assistants out of the box not working for any language. Although if you'd like to design a custom assistant for a custom language with your own prompt and context, again, that feature is coming soon and you'll be able to have your own buttons work for anything you want. Um, I have another question just for clarification. How reliable is it? Also, if you want to customize the hints, how can we do that? Yes, so this is part of the future enhancements that I was talking about earlier. As of now, depending on the guidelines you set and the instructions you set for the LLMs and how like the way you scope it out, there are a bunch of prompt engineering techniques that I can um, again like send you in a follow-up email. But there are ways to make sure that these assistants are um, the responses that these assistants phrase do not give out answers, are reliable, are very scoped out. The more context you give them, basically the TLDR is the more context you give them, the better they are at putting things together and the more reliable they get. And if you want to customize it, once our customization feature, API, and documentation is out, we'll also release some examples to show how exactly you can do it, and you should be able to take it from there. Most Python notebook assignments grade the assignment once the learner has submitted the assignment with selected mark is complete, which is the final step. How would this work there? Uh, so if you're talking about grading, right, that is a completely different thing. Because they don't, if they have a check it button, again, this is about custom buttons, right? If they have a check it button, they should be able to do it. And I guess one of my coworkers can answer that question really well. And they'll be typing it in chat and addressing that, Hitesh. Um, I'd like to thank everyone again for taking some time out to come to this webinar. I'm going to stay on for some more questions in case anyone has any more questions. Um, and yeah, I'd like to wish you a great rest of the day if you're um, heading out. And if you'll be at 6, we'll see you soon.